Jake Morrison had been exploring space for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for what he was about to discover. The commander of the exploration ship New Horizon stood in his captain's chair, watching the stars through the main screen. His crew was busy running their daily checks when something strange appeared on their sensors. "Commander, we're picking up a signal," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station. She was young but skilled, one of the best communication officers in the fleet. "It's not human." Jake felt his heart beat faster. After decades of searching, had they finally found proof that humans were not alone in the universe? He walked over to Amy's station and looked at the data scrolling across her screen. "Can you clean it up?" he asked. "Working on it, sir," Amy replied, her fingers flying over the controls. "The signal is very complex. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's scientist, joined them at the communication station. She was a brilliant woman who had spent her whole career studying the possibility of alien life. Her eyes were wide with excitement as she watched the data. "This is incredible," she whispered. "The mathematical patterns in this signal are far more advanced than anything humans have created." Jake nodded, but felt a chill run down his spine. Something about this discovery felt wrong. How long will it take to decode? "Maybe a few days," Amy said. "The computer is working on it now." For the next 3 days, the crew of the New Horizon worked around the clock to understand the alien signal. They barely slept or ate, driven by the excitement of making the most important discovery in human history. When Amy finally called Jake to the bridge on the 4th day, her face was pale. "Commander, you need to hear this," she said quietly. Jake hurried to the bridge, followed by Dr. Vasquez and the other senior officers. Amy's hands were shaking as she reached for the controls. "Before I play this, I need to tell you something," Amy said. "This isn't a greeting or a peaceful message. It's a report." "What kind of report?" Jake asked. "A business report," Amy replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "About us." She pressed the play button, and the bridge filled with the sound of alien voices. The computer had translated their language, and the words that came through the speakers made everyone's blood run cold. "Processing report for Sector 7 Delta," the alien voice said in a tone that was completely without emotion. "Human colony. Designation New Springfield has been successfully harvested. Total population processed, 4,847 units. Genetic samples show good potential for heavy labor applications." Jake felt sick to his stomach. New Springfield was a human colony that had gone silent 6 months ago. The official report said they had suffered a reactor failure that killed everyone. The alien voice continued. "Batch quality is acceptable. Recommend immediate transfer to processing facility Zeta 7 for final preparation. Adult males show 73%. Survival rate during neural conditioning. Females and juveniles showing 89% survival rate." Dr. Vasquez grabbed Jake's arm. "Commander, they're talking about people. Human people." The report went on for another 10 minutes, listing colony after colony that Jake recognized. Places where humans lived, worked, and raised their families. The aliens called them harvesting sites and talked about the people like they were crops to be collected. Species designation H7 continues to show promise as a labor resource, the alien said. Their physical capabilities are adequate, and their psychological profiles make them easy to control after processing. Recommend expanding harvesting operations to sectors 12 through 15. Jake's hands were shaking with rage. "How many colonies are they talking about?" Amy checked her data. 47 colonies, sir. All places that we thought were lost to accidents or natural disasters. How many people? Jake asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. Dr. Vasquez was running calculations on her tablet. Based on the population records, approximately 2.3 million people. A bridge fell completely silent. Everyone stared at the speakers as the alien voice continued its cold, businesslike report. These creatures had been stealing humans for years, maybe decades, and nobody had known. There's more, Amy said quietly. The signal contains shipping records, facility locations, and processing schedules. Commander, they have hundreds of thousands of our people in slave camps across the galaxy. Jake felt his anger growing into something bigger and more dangerous. What else do we know about these aliens? They call themselves the Zephyrian Collective, Dr. Vasquez said, reading from her tablet. Based on their communication patterns, they've been doing this for a very long time. Not just to humans, but to dozens of other species. Are they coming for more colonies? Jake asked. Amy nodded grimly. According to their schedule, they plan to hit 6 more human settlements in the next month. Jake looked around at his crew. He saw fear in their eyes, but also anger. Good. They would need that anger for what came next. Amy, send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them everything we've discovered. Elena, I want you to study every piece of data in that signal. I want to know everything about these Zephyrians, their technology, their weaknesses, their locations. What are we going to do, Commander? Asked Lieutenant Rick Hayes, the ship's tactical officer. Jake stared out at the stars, but now they looked different. The galaxy was no longer a place of wonder and exploration. It was a hunting ground, and humans had been the prey for far too long. We're going to stop them, Jake said simply. We're going to free our people, and we're going to make sure these aliens never hurt another human being. But, sir, Dr. Vasquez said, their technology is far more advanced than ours. They've been traveling between stars for centuries, maybe thousands of years. How can we fight them? Jake turned to face his crew, because they made one big mistake. They think we're weak. They think we're just animals to be harvested. But they don't understand what humans do when we're threatened. What do we do? Amy asked. We survive. We adapt. We fight back, Jake said. And we make them pay for every single person they've taken. The crew looked at their commander with new respect. They had come out here to explore the galaxy and search for new worlds. Instead, they had discovered that humanity was already at war. They just hadn't known it yet. Set course for Earth, Jake ordered. Maximum speed. It's time to wake up the human race. As the New Horizon turned toward home, Jake remained on the bridge, staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, millions of humans were being held as slaves by creatures who saw them as nothing more than useful animals. But those creatures had never faced humans who knew the truth. They had never faced humans who were angry. Jake smiled grimly. The Zephyrians thought they were the hunters, but they were about to learn that humans could be hunters too. And when humans hunted, they didn't stop until they won. The aliens had been playing a game for centuries, picking off isolated human colonies like a predator, taking the weak from a herd. But now the herd knew about the predator. Now the herd was going to hunt back. Jake touched the communication panel. This is Commander Morrison to all crew. What we've learned today changes everything. We're no longer an exploration ship. We're the ship that discovered humanity's greatest enemy. And we're going to be part of the force that destroys them. The bridge crew stood a little straighter. They had a mission now, and it was the most important mission in human history. They were going to war, and they were going to win. The truth had reached humanity, and the slavers had just sealed their own fate. Admiral Lisa Carter walked into the emergency meeting room at Earth Command headquarters with a heavy heart. She had been in the military for 30 years and had seen many crises, but nothing like this. The room was filled with the most important people on Earth, presidents, generals, scientists, and leaders from every nation. The New Horizon had arrived 2 days ago with news that shook humanity to its core. Admiral Carter had spent those 2 days reviewing every piece of evidence, every alien transmission, every piece of data that Commander Morrison had brought back. All of it pointed to the same terrible truth. Humans were being hunted. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Carter began, standing at the front of the room. "I know you've all seen the preliminary reports, but I need to explain exactly what we're facing." She pressed a button, and a large screen showed the alien transmission data. Pictures of human colonies appeared, along with cold alien text that described them as harvesting sites. "The Zephyrian Collective has been operating in our galaxy for thousands of years," Admiral Carter continued. "They are a species that survives by enslaving other races. For the past 200 years, they have been systematically taking humans from our outer colonies." President Daniel Hayes, a tall man with gray hair, leaned forward in his chair. "Admiral, how many of our people are we talking about?" "Based on the alien records, approximately 2.3 million humans have been taken," Admiral Carter replied. "Men, women, and children from 47 different colonies." The room erupted in angry voices. People shouted questions and demands for action. Admiral Carter waited for the noise to die down before continuing. "The colonies we thought were lost to accidents, natural disasters, or equipment failures were actually attacked by these aliens," she said. "New Springfield, Haven Valley, Terra Nova, all of them were harvested for slaves." Secretary of Defense Patricia Wells stood up, her face red with anger. "What kind of military force are we dealing with? How many ships do they have?" "According to their own records, the Zephyrians have over 3,000 ships of various sizes," Admiral Carter answered. "Their technology is far more advanced than ours. They have energy shields, faster than light travel, and weapons we don't fully understand yet. So, what are you telling us?" Asked Dr. Robert Kim, the head of Earth's Science Council. "That we should surrender? That we can't fight them?" Admiral Carter's eyes hardened. "No, Doctor. I'm telling you that we need to be smart about this." She changed the display to show Earth's current military capabilities. The numbers were not impressive compared to the alien fleet. "Our entire space fleet consists of 200 ships," Admiral Carter said. "Most of them are designed for exploration, cargo transport, or asteroid mining. We have maybe 30 ships that could be called warships, and they're not built to fight an enemy like this." "Then how do we protect ourselves?" President Hayes asked. "We do what humans have always done when faced with a superior enemy, Admiral," Carter replied. "We adapt, we innovate, and we use our strengths against their weaknesses." Dr. Marcus Chun, the head of Advanced Technology Research, raised his hand. "Admiral, I've been studying the alien technical data. While their technology is more advanced, it's also very old. They haven't changed their basic designs in centuries." "Explain," Admiral Carter said. "They're like a big predator that has never had to worry about being hunted," Dr. Chun continued. "They've become lazy and overconfident. Meanwhile, human technology has advanced incredibly fast in just the past 50 years. We're creative, we adapt quickly, and we learn from our mistakes." General Paul Rodriguez, head of Earth's combined military forces, stood up. "What about their psychology? What kind of species are we dealing with?" Admiral Carter nodded to Dr. Susan Martinez, Earth's leading expert on alien behavior. Dr. Martinez had been studying the Zephyrian communications for the past 2 days. "Based on their transmissions, the Zephyrians see other species as resources to be managed," Dr. Martinez explained. "They don't view us as intelligent beings. To them, we're like cattle, useful animals that can be trained to do work." "That's both good and bad news," Admiral Carter said. "It's bad because they have no moral problems with enslaving us. It's good because they don't see us as a real threat." "How is that good?" asked President Hayes. Because they won't expect us to fight back effectively, Admiral Carter replied. They've been picking off isolated colonies for centuries. They've never faced organized human resistance. The room fell quiet as everyone thought about what this meant. Finally, Secretary Wells spoke up. Admiral, what do you recommend? Admiral Carter took a deep breath. I recommend that we immediately begin the largest military buildup in human history. We need to design and build ships specifically to fight the Zephyrians. We need new weapons, new tactics, and new strategies. How long will that take? President Hayes asked. If we mobilize everything, every shipyard, every factory, every scientist and engineer, we could have a fighting force ready in 6 months. Admiral Carter said. And what about the colonies that are scheduled to be attacked? Asked. Dr. Kim. Admiral Carter's face was grim. We evacuate as many as we can and prepare the ones we can't evacuate to fight. We also send warning messages to every human settlement in space. President Hayes stood up slowly. Admiral Carter, you have my complete authorization to begin immediate preparations for war. Whatever resources you need, whatever authority you require, you have it. Thank you, Mr. President, Admiral Carter replied. General Rodriguez raised his hand. Admiral, what about recruiting? We're going to need a lot more soldiers and pilots. I don't think that will be a problem, Admiral Carter said with a slight smile. When people learn that aliens have been kidnapping humans for centuries, I think we'll have more volunteers than we can handle. Dr. Chun spoke up again. Admiral, I have some ideas about new weapon systems. If the Zephyrians use energy shields, we might be able to develop weapons that can get around them. I want to hear all your ideas, Admiral Carter said. We're going to need every advantage we can get. What about the humans who are already captured? Asked Dr. Martinez. The ones in the alien slave camps? Admiral Carter's expression hardened. We're going to get them back, every single one of them. As the meeting continued, plans began to take shape. Earth's entire industrial capacity would be converted to military production. Scientists would work around the clock to develop new technologies. The military would begin training programs for space combat. But most importantly, humanity would finally know the truth about what was happening to their people. For 2 centuries, humans had believed they were alone in a peaceful universe. Now, they knew they were in a war. They hadn't even realized they were fighting. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Carter said as the meeting began to wind down, 6 months from now, the Zephyrians are going to discover that humans are not the helpless prey they thought we were. They're going to learn that when you attack. Humanity attacks back. President Hayes nodded. The age of human innocence is over. Now begins the age of human vengeance. As the leaders filed out of the room to begin the massive preparations, Admiral Carter remained behind, staring at the star charts on the wall. Somewhere out there, millions of humans were trapped in alien slave camps, waiting for rescue they didn't even know was coming. But help was coming. And when it arrived, the Zephyrians would discover that they had made the biggest mistake in their species' history. They had declared war on humanity. The sleeping giant was finally awake, and it was very, very angry. Colonel Steve Parker floated through the Luna shipyards in his zero-gravity suit, watching the most incredible sight he had ever seen. 6 months ago, these shipyards had been quiet places where a few cargo ships were built each year. Now they looked like a giant metal city, buzzing with activity 24 hours a day. Thousands of workers moved through the construction areas like busy ants. Welding sparks flew everywhere as new ship frames took shape. The sound of hammering, drilling, and machinery never stopped. Earth had mobilized every resource it had to build a war fleet, and the results were amazing. Colonel Parker, over here, called Chief Engineer Nancy Brooks. She was floating near a massive ship that was almost finished. "I want to show you something special." Steve pushed off a wall and glided over to Nancy. She was a brilliant woman who had spent her whole career building spacecraft, but nothing like what she was building now. "This is the first Retribution-class destroyer," Nancy said proudly. "It's completely different from anything we've built before." Steve looked at the ship and whistled softly. It was sleek and dangerous looking, with sharp angles and weapon ports all along its hull. It looked like it was built for one purpose, to fight and win. "How is it different from our old ships?" Steve asked. "Everything," Nancy replied. "The old ships were built for exploration and cargo. These new ships are pure warships. They're faster, tougher, and deadlier than anything humans have ever created." She led him inside the ship, where more workers were installing the final systems. The bridge was smaller than on exploration ships, but packed with advanced computers and weapons controls. "The armor is made from a new alloy that can absorb energy weapon hits," Nancy explained. "The engines are 3 times more powerful than our old designs, and the weapons ... She smiled in a way that made Steve feel sorry for any alien who had to face these ships. "Tell me about the weapons," Steve said. "We call them quantum torpedoes." Nancy said, "Dr. Chun's team developed them based on the alien shield technology we captured. Regular energy weapons bounce off Zephyrian shields, but these torpedoes can phase right through them." Steve nodded. He had read the reports about humanity's new weapons, but seeing the actual ship made it real. "How many ships will be ready?" "For the first mission? 47 destroyers, 12 carriers, and 8 support ships," Nancy replied. "Each one crewed by volunteers who want to rescue our people." They moved to the next construction bay, where Steve saw something that made his heart race. Dozens of small, fast fighter ships were being loaded onto the carrier ships. "The new Raptor fighters," Nancy said, noticing his interest. "They're designed for space combat against alien ships. Fast, deadly, and piloted by some of the best humans we could find." As if summoned by their conversation, Captain Rachel Foster appeared, pushing herself along the zero-gravity rails. She wore the flight suit of the new Raptor squadron, with patches showing a bird of prey attacking from the stars. "Colonel Parker," Rachel said with a salute. "I was hoping to meet you." "Captain Foster," Steve replied. "I've heard good things about your squadron." Rachel's smile was cold and determined. "We're ready to show these aliens what human pilots can do. They've been picking on defenseless colonies for centuries. Now they get to face fighters who know they're coming." "Any concerns about fighting an enemy with superior technology?" Steve asked. "With respect, sir, their technology might be more advanced, but it's also predictable," Rachel replied. "We've studied their combat patterns from the data commander Morrison brought back. They rely on overwhelming firepower and energy shields. They've never had to deal with enemies who use different tactics." Steve was impressed by her confidence. "What makes human tactics different?" "We're unpredictable," Rachel said. "We adapt quickly, we take calculated risks, and we fight like our lives depend on it, because they do." They were interrupted by Dr. Kevin Martinez, who came floating over with a tablet in his hands. He was the head of the new Alien Research Division, and he looked excited about something. "Colonel, Captain, you need to see this," Dr. Martinez said. "We've made a breakthrough in understanding Zephyrian weaknesses." "What kind of breakthrough?" Steve asked. "Their ships are controlled by central command nodes," Dr. Martinez explained. "Each fleet has a command ship that coordinates all the others. If we can disable or destroy the command ship, the rest of their fleet becomes confused and disorganized." Rachel's eyes lit up, like cutting off the head of a snake. "Exactly," Dr. Martinez said. "But there's more. We've also discovered something about their psychology. The Zephyrians have been the top predators in this galaxy for so long that they've become overconfident. They don't expect real resistance. How does that help us? Steve asked. They won't be prepared for human tactics. Dr. Martinez replied. They expect their enemies to fight the same way they do. Big ships and straight battle lines, trading energy weapon fire until one side gives up. They've never faced enemies who use stealth, surprise attacks, or coordinated small unit tactics. Steve nodded thoughtfully. So we use their expectations against them. Right, Dr. Martinez said. We hit them fast, hard, and from directions they don't expect. We target their command ships first, then clean up the rest while they're confused. They moved to the next area, where Steve saw something that filled him with pride. Hundreds of men and women in military uniforms were training on combat simulators. These were the crews who would take the new ships into battle. How many volunteers do we have? Steve asked. More than we can use, Nancy replied. When people learned about the alien slave camps, recruitment stations were overwhelmed. We had to turn away thousands of people. What about the rescued slaves? Steve asked. The ones we managed to evacuate from colonies before the aliens arrived? Many of them want to join the fight too, Rachel said. Some of them lost family members to previous alien raids. They're very motivated. Steve watched the trainees working on their simulators. They were practicing ship-to-ship combat, learning to coordinate their attacks, and studying alien weaknesses. In 6 months, these ordinary humans had transformed themselves into a military force designed for one purpose: to rescue their people and destroy their enemies. Colonel, Nancy said, I want to show you one more thing. She led him to an observation deck that looked out over the entire shipyard complex. Dozens of ships in various stages of construction stretched as far as he could see. Workers and robots moved constantly, building humanity's first real war fleet. 6 months ago, this was just a place where we built a few cargo ships, Nancy said. Now it's the center of humanity's war effort. And it's not just here. Every shipyard, every factory, every research facility on Earth and Mars is working on this project. Steve looked out at the incredible sight. How long until we're ready? The first wave launches in 2 weeks, Nancy replied. 47 ships and their crews, heading for the first alien facility we're going to hit. Which facility? Steve asked. Rachel answered with a grim smile. The processing center in the Kepler 442 system. Intelligence reports say they're holding over 50,000 human slaves there. Steve felt his anger rising again. 50,000 people, stolen from their homes and families, forced to work as slaves for aliens who saw them as nothing more than useful animals. Time to bring them home, he said quietly. As the three of them stood watching the shipyard, Steve realized that humanity had changed forever. 6 months ago, they had been peaceful explorers, reaching out to the stars with hope and curiosity. Now they were warriors, building weapons of war and preparing to fight for the survival of their species. The aliens had made humanity into something they had never been before: a united, determined, and very dangerous enemy. Soon the Zephyrians would learn what happened when you awakened a sleeping giant. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Through the main screen, he could see the rest of the human fleet spread out in attack formation. 47 destroyers, 12 carriers, and 8 support ships, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. All ships report ready for combat, Admiral, announced Commander Beth Turner from her position at the communications station. She had been promoted after the discovery of the alien threat and had trained hard for this moment. Jake looked around at his bridge crew. These were people who had volunteered to risk their lives to save other humans they had never met. 6 months ago, most of them had been civilians. Now they were warriors ready to face an enemy that had been terrorizing the galaxy for thousands of years. "Remember, everyone," Jake said into the fleet communication system, "we're not just fighting for ourselves today. We're fighting for every human who has been taken, every family that has been broken apart, and every child who has been stolen from their parents." The human fleet was approaching the Kepler 442 system, where intelligence reports said the Zephyrians had built a massive slave processing facility. According to the alien data they had captured, over 50,000 humans were being held there, forced to work in terrible conditions. "Admiral, we're dropping out of hyperspace in 30 seconds," reported Lieutenant Commander Rick Hayes from the navigation station. "All weapons systems online," called out Lieutenant Sarah Webb from the weapons console. "Quantum torpedoes loaded and ready." Jake felt his heart beating faster. This would be humanity's first real battle against the aliens who had been hunting them for centuries. Everything they had learned, everything they had built, everything they had planned was about to be tested. "Drop us out of hyperspace," Jake ordered. The stars suddenly appeared on the main screen as the human fleet entered normal space at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. What they saw made everyone gasp in shock and anger. The alien facility was enormous. It looked like a small metal moon, covered with buildings, towers, and landing platforms. Hundreds of alien ships moved around it like insects around a hive. And scattered across its surface were clearly marked areas labeled in alien writing: slave quarters, processing centers, and work facilities. "My God," whispered Dr. Helen Davis, the fleet's alien expert. "It's bigger than we thought." "How many ships are defending it?" Jake asked. "I count 87 Zephyrian vessels," Rick replied, his voice tight with concern. "Most of them are larger than our ships." Jake nodded grimly. A human fleet was outnumbered almost 2-1, and the alien ships had more advanced technology. But humans had advantages that the aliens didn't expect. "They don't know we're coming," Jake said. "Look at their formation. They're spread out for normal patrol duty, not organized for battle." He was right. The alien ships were moving in lazy patterns around the facility, like guards who had never expected to be attacked. Some of them weren't even pointing toward the human fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," Jake announced. "Execute Battle Plan Alpha. Target their command ships first, then hit the facility defenses. Remember, there are humans down there, counting on us." The battle began exactly as the humans had planned it. The first wave of quantum torpedoes streaked through space toward the largest Zephyrian ships. The aliens' energy shields flickered and tried to stop the weapons, but the human torpedoes passed right through them like they weren't even there. 3 alien command ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Immediately, the rest of the alien fleet began to lose coordination. Their ships started moving in confused patterns, bumping into each other and firing in random directions. "It's working," Beth shouted excitedly. "They can't coordinate without their command ships." "Captain," Rachel Foster led the Raptor Squadron in a daring attack on the facility's defense platforms. Her small, fast fighters danced through the alien weapon fire like deadly birds, hitting their targets with precision strikes before spinning away to attack again. "This is Raptor Leader," Rachel's voice came through the communications. "Defense. GRID is down. Repeat, defense grid is down." The alien defenders were completely unprepared for human tactics. They had expected a traditional battle with large ships firing energy weapons at each other from long range. Instead, they faced fast-moving human fighters that attacked from all directions, quantum torpedoes that ignored their shields, and coordinated strikes that targeted their weaknesses. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the aliens," Beth reported. "They're trying to contact us." "Put it through," Jake ordered. An alien voice filled the bridge. speaking in the same cold, emotionless tone they had heard in the original. Transmission. But now there was something else in the voice. Confusion and fear. Unknown vessels, you are attacking a legitimate Zephyrian facility, the alien said. This is not permitted under galactic law. Cease your attack immediately. Jake's eyes blazed with anger. Tell them this. We are humans, and we have come for our people. There is no galactic law that protects slavers. The alien voice became more urgent. This is impossible. Species H7 does not possess military technology. You cannot be here. We're here, Jake replied coldly. And we're not going anywhere until every human in that facility is free. The battle continued for 2 more hours. The human ships moved with deadly precision, using their speed and advanced weapons to destroy alien vessels one by one. The Zephyrians tried to reorganize their defenses, but without their command ships, they couldn't coordinate their attacks. Admiral, the alien fleet is retreating, Rick reported. 31 enemy ships destroyed. The rest are running. Jake nodded with satisfaction. All ships, begin landing operations. Marines, it's time to go get our people. The human Marines had trained for months for this moment. They landed on the alien facility in small, fast ships, fighting their way through the alien guards to reach the slave quarters. What they found there made even the toughest soldiers cry. Thousands of humans were crammed into tiny cells, many of them wearing electronic collars that controlled their behavior. Men, women, and children who had been taken from their homes and families, forced to work as slaves for aliens who saw them as nothing more than useful animals. "This is Marine Captain Tom Wilson," came a voice through the communications. "We've reached the main slave quarters. These people have been here for years. Some of them don't even remember their real names." Jake felt his anger grow even stronger. "Get them out of there, Captain. All of them." It took 6 hours to evacuate all the humans from the alien facility. Many of them were sick and weak from years of forced labor and poor treatment. Some of them couldn't believe that rescue had actually come. "Admiral," Beth reported, "final count. We've rescued 52,847 humans from this facility. Ages range from children to elderly adults. Medical teams are working to treat the sick and injured." Jake watched through the main screen as the last transport ships left the alien facility. Then he gave the order he had been waiting months to give. "All ships target the facility. I want it completely destroyed." The human fleet opened fire with everything they had. Quantum torpedoes, energy weapons, and missile strikes turned the massive alien complex into a burning ruin. When they were finished, nothing remained but floating debris. "That's for every human who suffered in that place," Jake said quietly as the human fleet prepared to return to Earth with their rescued people. Jake realized that this was just the beginning. The aliens had dozens of facilities like this one, holding millions of human slaves across the galaxy. But today had proven something important. The Zephyrians were not unbeatable. They could be surprised. They could be defeated, and their slaves could be freed. "Set course for Earth," Jake ordered. "We have people to take home and a war to plan." The sleeping giant was fully awake now, and it was very, very angry. 2 years had passed since the first human victory at Kepler 442, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Admiral Jake Morrison walked through the ruins of the Zephyrian capital city on their homeworld, watching as the last of the alien leadership was taken into custody by human soldiers. The war had been swift and brutal. Once humanity learned the truth about their galactic neighbors, they had unleashed a campaign of liberation that swept across Zephyrian space like a fire burning through dry grass. Every slave facility, every processing center, every alien stronghold had been systematically attacked and destroyed. "Final numbers, Admiral," reported Colonel Mary Johnson, walking up with a data tablet in her hands. She had been promoted several times during the war, and now served as Jake's chief of operations. We've liberated 3.2 million humans from 847 different facilities. The entire Zephyrian fleet has been captured or destroyed. Jake nodded, but kept his face serious. Victory had come at a price. Thousands of human soldiers had died in the fighting, and many of the rescued slaves would need years to recover from their treatment. But they had accomplished something that no other species in the galaxy had ever done. They had completely defeated the Zephyrians. What about the other species? Jake asked. The ones the aliens were also enslaving? We've made contact with 17 different alien races that were being held as slaves, Dr. Elena Vasquez reported. She had become humanity's first ambassador to other species, helping to coordinate the liberation efforts. Most of them are grateful, but some are worried about us. Jake understood their concern. In just 2 years, humanity had gone from unknown species to the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Their technology had advanced incredibly fast as they captured and improved on Zephyrian designs. To other species, humans might look like the next potential threat. Are they right to be worried? Jake asked quietly. That depends on what we do. Next, Elena replied honestly. They were interrupted by Captain Lisa Wong, who came running over with an urgent message. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian Empress. She wants to discuss surrender terms. Jake smiled coldly. The Empress had been hiding in her palace for months, while her empire crumbled around her. Now that human forces had reached her homeworld, she was finally ready to talk. Tell her I'll meet with her in 1 hour, Jake said. And tell her that if she tries any tricks, her entire species will pay the price. An hour later, Jake stood in the Zephyrian throne room, a massive chamber with walls covered in alien artwork that celebrated their conquests. The Empress was a tall, thin creature with gray skin and large black eyes. She looked angry and afraid. At the same time, "You cannot do this to us," the Empress said in accented English. "We are the Zephyrian Collective. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. Your rule is over," Jake replied simply. "You made the mistake of hunting humans. Now you get to live with the consequences. We were following the natural order." The Empress protested. "Strong species dominate weak ones. That is how the universe works." Jake's eyes hardened. "Then you should understand what's happening to you. Humans are stronger than Zephyrians. The natural order says we get to decide your fate now." The Empress looked shocked. She had never expected to be on the receiving end of the natural order. She had used to justify centuries of slavery and murder. "What are your terms?" she asked quietly. "Complete dismantling of all slave operations," Jake began. "Full reparations to every species you've harmed. Your military will be disbanded and your weapons destroyed. A galactic council will oversee your rehabilitation." "And if we refuse?" the Empress asked. Jake's smile was not pleasant. "Then we finish what we started. Your choice." The Empress looked around at the human soldiers surrounding her throne. She had ruled an empire of thousands of worlds, commanded fleets of starships, and enslaved entire species. Now she was a prisoner in her own palace, defeated by a species she had considered primitive animals. "We accept your terms," she said, her voice barely a whisper. As Jake left the throne room, he found Elena waiting for him in the corridor. She looked troubled about something. "Admiral, we need to talk about what happens next," she said. "The other species in the galaxy are watching us very carefully. They're wondering if we're going to become the new Zephyrians." "Are we?" Jake asked. "That's up to us," Elena replied. "We have the most powerful military in the galaxy now. We could take over every world, enslave every species, become exactly what we fought against." Jake stopped walking and looked out through a window at the Zephyrian. City below. Human soldiers were helping alien civilians, setting up medical stations, and distributing food to people who had been living in fear for years. Look at them, Jake said. Our people aren't conquering this world. They're healing it. Elena followed his gaze and smiled. That's what gives me hope. Humans didn't fight this war to become rulers. We fought it to stop the suffering. They walked together toward the landing pad where human ships were waiting to take them back to Earth. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Millions of slaves from dozens of species needed to be returned to their homes. Damaged. Worlds needed to be rebuilt. New governments needed to be established. Admiral, there's something else, Elena said. We've discovered that the Zephyrians weren't the only slave-taking species in the galaxy. There are others out there, probably watching us right now, deciding if we're a threat. Jake nodded. He had expected this. The galaxy was vast, and there were probably hundreds of species they hadn't met yet. Some of them would be peaceful, others might be hostile, and some might be even worse than the Zephyrians. Then we'll be ready for them, Jake said. But we'll also be ready to help the species that need protection. As their ship lifted off from the Zephyrian homeworld, Jake looked down at the planet that had once been the center of a vast slave empire. Now it was just another world trying to rebuild after centuries of oppression. What do you think will happen to them? Elena asked, following his gaze. They'll learn to live without slaves, Jake replied. They'll discover what it means to work for themselves, to build something instead of just taking from others. It won't be easy, but they'll be better for it. The ship's communication system crackled to life. Admiral Morrison, this is Earth Command. The President wants to speak with you. Put him through, Jake said. President Hayes' voice filled the cabin. Admiral, on behalf of all humanity, thank you. You and your people have accomplished something. Amazing. Thank you, Mr. President, Jake replied. But our work isn't finished. There are still humans scattered across the galaxy who need to be brought home. And there are other species out there who might need our help. Are you saying we should become the galaxy's police force? The President asked. Jake thought about this carefully. I'm saying we should become what the Zephyrians never were, protectors instead of predators. The galaxy has seen what happens when the strong prey on the weak. Maybe it's time to show them what happens when the strong protect the weak. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, heading back toward Earth, Jake realized that humanity had changed forever. They were no longer the innocent explorers who had set out to find their place among the stars. They had become something new, a species that had learned the universe could be a dark and dangerous place, but had chosen to be a light in that darkness. The Zephyrians had thought they were hunting prey when they targeted humanity. Instead, they had awakened the galaxy's new guardians. The age of human dominance had begun, but it would be a dominance built on protection, not oppression. And throughout the galaxy, enslaved species looked up at the stars with new hope, knowing that, somewhere out there, humans were coming to set them free. The truth had reached humanity, and the galaxy would never be the same